Hey guys, welcome to Sisters Scoop. This is the very first episode, if you will. And it's going to be pretty much like if you've ever seen the ESPN show in general, they have a little segment where two guys kind of go over a lot of different topics and they have very little time to do so. And we're going to kind of do the same thing, but we'll do 3 topics each week relevant to the Marvel Universe as we know it. And we're going to break it down. I think give ourselves roughly 9 to 10 minutes, depending on how long I make this intro and how long our outro is going to be. And we're just going to get started. So, T, how about you take us away with that very first topic?
Sure. So the first topic of this week is that Daredevil has restarted production, which is super exciting, especially coming off of Echo 2 weeks ago, which of course Daredevil is essentially at this point sort of a spin-off based on everything that we saw with Kingpin at the end of that show. So super exciting because that means if it's back in production that we are hopefully going to get it, I think, next year. I'm
Hopefully.
super excited. I think so. I don't actually know, but I feel like 2025 is the year that all of the remaining stuff on the slate comes out. So that
It
seems
feels like
right
the
to
year
me.
everything comes out in general. Like, I feel like everything's like, 2025.
Exactly. We're going to be very, very busy that year. But what's awesome about that, too, with the production restarting, is that, of course, the rumor mill is back in full force. And we are getting all sorts of potential snippets, not snippets, but little details coming out of who might be in it, what it might be about, how it's changed, how many episodes. So there's a lot to break down because a lot has come out in the last few days.
Very true. And now, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I could be, or I could be listening to rumors. You never know. Daredevil is one of the shows that they pretty much overhauled it, right? Like it had one initial direction and now they're going a different way, right?
Yes, definitely. So if you guys remember, I think it was late spring, early summer last year, they had actually already started production. As you guys know, if you've been listening for any amount of time, I live in New York. So I was definitely already thinking, how can I find my way onto set one day? And then because of one of the strikes, I don't remember which one finally shut it down, but due to the strikes that happened over the summer and into the fall, they did have to shut production down. And at some point while it was shut down or right after the writers came back, they decided to overhaul the show. I think I was reading articles that talked about at one point they were talking about it being more focused on Matt's legal career, which cool, like that's definitely an important part of who Matt Murdock is, but I don't need the back half of Law and Order. I need Daredevil. So I think after all of the talk about how Marvel it has not been doing as well, take that with a grain of salt, but that's still the talk. Recently, they took a critical look at it and they were like, no, we're going to completely redo this. And I'm really excited because I think it's going to bring back some of the things that I love the most about the original Netflix series.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know too much about the show going into it because I think a lot of us weren't really sure what Marvel was going to do with it. And as somebody who it's still slated for me to watch the Daredevil Netflix show, I'm trying. There's a lot of TV to work through, guys. But that's obviously on my list to watch before this. And that is now officially canon. That has been said. So I think going into it, you had a lot of expectations. I hope that this change is going to be a very positive one for maybe the franchise, if that's the direction they hope to go with Daredevil, which I hope it is.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that's really interesting too that I was reading when I was preparing for this episode is that originally, and I don't know if you remember this, but they had talked about doing an 18 episode run, which as someone
I
who
do
thinks
remember
about
that.
the
That was
editing
stressful.
that comes with doing an episode 2 days after it comes out, the thought of doing that for 18 weeks made me really scared and a little sad. But they're talking about actually shortening it, which is interesting because one number that was thrown around, I think, was 13. And the reason that was thrown around is because that's what they used to do for the Netflix show. So it does sound like they're taking a lot of the blueprint of what was successful about that show and trying to, you know, recreate it, but in a way that's more connected to the larger MCU, which realistically, that would have been one of the few things I think that could have made the original Daredevil run better. So I'm really excited about that. But I think it's time to dive into our second topic because we're running a little over already. And that is, and Katie looks so excited, that the Thunderbolts gets underway in about a month. And this is right out of Sebastian Stan's mouth. He has talked about how he is going to be back on and ready to go. So we have another exciting production update as we get ready for another 2025 release.
The love of my life has spoken, and to that, we take it as Bible because if it's out of Sebastian Stan's mouth, it is absolutely true and a for sure fact. I am so excited for those of you who have listened to anything we've put out within, I don't know, whenever they announce Thunderbolts. This is the project I have been waiting for. I'm so excited for it to finally start shooting. It got pushed back, obviously, because of the different strikes that were going on. Although, let's not bat around the bush here. They're missing a villain still.
Yeah. As you may or may not know, the actor who was supposed to play Sentry backed out about 3 weeks ago, right at the beginning of the year, actually. And so I'm not really sure what that's looking like. I don't know if they got someone under the radar, if they're going to go with an up and coming actor, and that's why we haven't really heard about it, because that actor, I believe, was from the Walking Dead. It's not a franchise that I'm particularly into, but is famous for specifically that and a few other things, but that's kind of where he was discovered, I believe. So, they had someone who was really, really well known, and now they might, I don't know, my guess is maybe they're going with someone smaller to keep it under the radar, or they're just keeping it a secret. I don't know. Maybe they want to surprise us all. Though if you got a really big name, to me, don't surprise me. Use that as a marketing ploy. I don't know. I have so
Yeah.
many questions.
I mean, I did see, and again, rumor mill, who knows if this is true or not, but I did see that there was, this was another actor from a franchise I am not familiar with, and so I'm blanking on who it was, but when I showed his face, I recognized who he was, and they said that he had turned down the role. Again, I don't remember the guy's name, and that could still be a rumor, but I did see that on Twitter only a few days ago that they offered him that role of Sentry and he had turned it down. So if you want to believe that, then they really don't have a villain yet, and they do begin filming. Granted, you can do a good bit depending on how the project is written without a villain. You don't necessarily need them. And then also you always can come back for, reshoots afterwards and make it work. So, and it's a movie. We have a lot of time. You got a lot of time to film a movie. I don't know. I don't care at this point. I know my Seb is there. Florence will be there. The two I care about the most. And that's fine. That's all I need. Screw the villain. We don't need the villain.
Okay, sure. Moving on to our last topic.
Just my opinion.
Which kind of relates to Seb as well, which is that we are starting to get more and more out of What If Season 3. And I think the thing that stuck out the most to me, which inside fact here, or little tidbit about Katie and I, we sent each other the same Marvel post within probably a couple hours of one another, because guess what? Sam is actually going to be in What If. Not only is he just going to be in What If, but he's actually going to be Captain America. So it's basically like they heard Caitlin complaining about the lack of Sam Wilson in pretty much all of our media.
Thank you, Marvel.
Like, you want Sam? We'll give you Sam. So good news, all you Sam fans like us, we're going to get him. He's going to be in at least one episode, and we're getting more and more hints. I don't know about you, Kate, but I think Season 3 might just actually be around the corner.
Listen, I don't understand what's happening here. Well, okay, first off, let me just say, when Taylor says mere hours, it was actually 45 minutes apart. And the only reason I didn't see it was because my phone had been on Do Not Disturb because I was at the gym. So I went on Instagram, saw it, and sent it to her, and she was like, dude, I literally sent it to you already. So I was like, okay. But yeah, I mean, I'm confused. I said this during our What If reactions. They dropped Season 3, like, or at least the first teaser towards it, the same day as the season 2 finale. So we already said, hey, this is kind of weird. And now, what? Maybe not even a month, because the first episode of What If was around this time. So not even a month later, we're getting more of season 3. I honestly expected a date when I was reading the paragraph that they had. And obviously we didn't get one, but I'm expecting this by at least the end of this year, if not by this summer.
Yeah, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a spring release, because, I mean, we have no date for Agatha as far as I'm aware. I think maybe the back half of the year they might have given us a time frame, and I think it was around Halloween, because that's something that we talked about it being smart timing. But, you know, they don't really have a lot until Deadpool. I mean, obviously the
Right.
Sony stuff is coming out, but MCU proper, Marvel, does not have much coming out, so they need things to fill the gap, and I wouldn't be surprised if they spend 9 weeks on What If to help fill in a content hole.
Well, and I have so much more to add, but we have hit our threshold of time here covering this topic because we talked too much about the first one, but that's okay. These have been our 3 updates to the MCU with this week with Sister Scoop. Make sure you guys come back next week for another round and stick with us and the podcast.